We should never allow the government to decide what is acceptable speech and what is unacceptable speech. We should penalize behaviors, not opinions, and not speech. If you start trying to regulate speech, you start trying to regulate thoughts, you start trying to regulate beliefs rather than behaviors, there's no way that you're not going to abridge the constitutional rights of millions of Americans.
The time has come, I think, to bring out some facts about what we've been seeing on the news recently. I decided to discuss this subject about Roseanne because it's becoming more and more clear to a lot of people in the media that our individuality is what's under fire, and it's not about the subject that they keep saying it's about, which is racism. It's about your individual right to say what you want to say, and that people do not recognize your right to say what you want. It's now about the blacks having the absolute final say of what they consider is something you can talk about, something you can say, something you cannot say, because they feel that their opinions and their personal beliefs are the only thing that we have to live by in this country. And where did that idea come from? Barack Obama, he started it right after he became president. He brainwashed people to think only the way he wanted them to think. He may not be the president now, but that does not mean that he still isn't working on becoming the global leader that then will take over not only the United States and the United Nations, but he will control the world again. And he's given the blacks this fatalistic viewpoint that because of them being descended from slaves, that now it's going to give them the overbearing philosophy of them having the rights now to dictate to other people of how we should not only live, but how we should think, what we will think, what we will believe, what we will accept by the basis of Obama's stooges, and that's the Communist Democrats. And whenever something happens in the media, in anything political, there is this viewpoint that it has to be in the context of what does a black think first, and if it hurts their feelings, therefore it's totally illegal and it's wrong, and it's now beyond even that. Now it's criminal for you to think a certain way or to do something. And all you got to do is look at the 8 years of Obama's dictatorship and his tyrant that he was saying to people over and over again. Michelle, his wife, kept saying, you're not going to eat that anymore, you're not going to watch that anymore, you're not going to, and she just went through a list of things over and over again. Your kids ain't going to eat this in school, we're going to phase that out, you ain't going to eat that no more, you're not going to think this way. And people laugh about that. But if you have any conscience awareness of what's going on, and a lot of people don't, because all they see is that blacks have the absolute right of dictating how and what we believe now, that it's no longer your individual right to believe something, then this is the only outcome, that people have been mentally brainwashed to believe something, to believe that now a black is at the highest scheme of life itself, and that whatever they believe or don't believe, everybody else has to live that way. Everybody else has to believe that. Everybody else has to exist that way, because now they're telling us, they're dictating to us what they want us to believe what we will believe, what we will live by, how we will perceive everything around us. And that's why you have people attacking videos on YouTube saying, "Oh, you're a conspiratist, you're crazy, you're this, you're that." And I have to tell you, you as a person who is hypocritical, instead of having an open viewpoint, an open mind about both sides, you're no longer that way. You're not objective in looking at both sides of an issue anymore. People are one-sided, and I explain it this way. That viewpoint of a one-sided person is based on what Obama spent billions of dollars as president paying different kinds of psychologists and psychiatrists to do brain research, to study human behavior, was simply to overall in 8 years' time using high-definition television to manipulate people's minds. And now they have no perceptions of what is and is not fair, and it's not a considerate viewpoint towards human beings when you only look at one side of an issue, and that is the black side of an issue. They're the only ones people can talk about now. Otherwise, they just say you're a racist. But yet, when a black person says things like the N-word and everything else, it's perfectly okay. A black can do anything they want, and it's not racism. And as a matter of fact, if you point that out to them and you say you're a racist because you're saying the same thing you're saying I can't say, they say, no, that's not right. In other words, now they're telling us it's our way or nothing. It's a black's way and a black's viewpoint in any subject matter that's discussed, or it's racism. And that's laughable, because it means that you don't have rights as an American citizen to say, I don't agree with that, I think what I think, and therefore I should have as much right to say what I want to say as you do. And blacks now have brainwashed people through Obama to believe only their way is it, and that's all. And anybody else who has a difference of opinion is wrong. Roseanne Barr, for many years, was very, very controversial, even before she came back on television. She grabbed her crotch during the national anthem when she was singing. Some people found that vulgar, but you know what? At that time, most people cheered. Most people were just outright vulgar themselves. They liked people doing that kind of thing. And I think that was even before Obama was president. And now all of a sudden, because Roseanne brings up Planet of the Apes, other references to blacks being apes and so forth, now it's like, oh, you can't say that anymore. Oh, that's racism. And I never saw a change in our Constitution that said, now you cannot say things unless a black allows you to. It doesn't say in the Constitution the blacks have absolute sway about freedom of thought, freedom of expression, freedom of just choice itself, unless they approve of it. And that is, in a nutshell, of what our country has come to. It's either the black has acceptance or you're a racist. You are under their total control, you're under their total submission. And Obama was pushing it for 8 years as president. Before Obama became president, this whole mess that we're in today never happened. Trump is the only smart guy we've had since Ronald Reagan. The Bushes didn't know squat. Bill Clinton was an absolute joke, as was Hillary. They are not brought up on charges about the email scandal to this day, nor is Obama, for giving $15 billion or $150 billion to Iran. It's like when you bring up subjects that the blacks don't want you talking about, they null and void it, and they will not permit people to talk about it on the media, on social media, or anywhere else. They say, nope, you can't talk about that anymore. It's our choice. It's our decision whether or not you say that. And long term, if this keeps up, what I've been saying over and over again is going to happen. There's going to be a civil war in America again. It's not going to be between two different parts of the country. It's going to be about blacks mandating themselves as our masters, and it is that point now. Whites are now slaves to blacks. That's what they want. That's exactly what they've been saying over and over again on television. That's what they've been saying. Even Louis Farrakhan was saying this on the radio only just about 2 days ago. He said, kill all whites. If that's not racism, and the blacks say, well, that's our choice, we can say what we want, but you as a white person have no rights to say squat, you can't say nothing, then it means that our freedom has now been just sort of like torn up and shredded in our faces, because now they're saying the Constitution is only valid for blacks and no longer for anybody else except them. And that if you say something against a black or about a black that they don't agree with, they'll just use it as a bias to say it's racism, even if it's not racism. Starbucks is another subject I want to discuss in this video. Now, people are laughing this off, but if Starbucks can say that anybody can come into their restaurants now, sit there and never leave if they don't want to buy something, if they don't want to do anything except loiter, which is supposed to be a crime to loiter in someone else's business, then it means now Starbucks is advocating for homelessness, advocating for vagrancy, every other kind of thing. In other words, if you want to come into their restaurant and take up residence, they're not going to make you leave. Starbucks is going to let you stay there indefinitely. And they will never make you leave their premises again, because they're too scared that your being forced out of their restaurant makes them look bad, or it makes it a bad public relations disaster for them. Blacks are using something that for 50 years ago was considered laughable, and that's called sit-ins. Blacks would go to these restaurants where they were segregated between white section, black section, and now blacks are using that same philosophy and saying, we're not leaving because we're not going to leave. We're going to stay. You know, and it's a defiant viewpoint about themselves, seeing themselves as better than everybody else. So therefore, they're just going to sit there and not do anything. And the law has every right to have these people removed simply because there's a law that's called loitering. There's a law that's called vagrancy, which means you aren't supposed to be there and you're not doing anything for that business's benefits. Therefore, you have to leave. You got to go someplace else. And the blacks are like adamantly saying, well, we control everything now, so we're not leaving. We're not going anywhere. And this is just the start of it. You know, and look at America today, how people put down Trump, who's trying to do what's right for our country. And they don't look at it that way. They look at him as the man that won the election. By all legitimate and legal means, he won the election, but they can't accept it. So the blacks are now retaliating. The whites who love blacks, who love Obama, are saying the same thing. We don't like Trump winning the election. We want Hillary Clinton. And so we're just going to have a temper tantrum every day against Trump because he won the election. And if that's not stupidity, if that's not egotistical arrogance, then, you know, it's like people's minds are Swiss cheese because of what they've been forced and brainwashed into believing. That a black is all there is and that everybody else is nothing. And I will take on the subject of saying women are at the same level as blacks. Blacks and women are the only two, race and gender, who have absolute power in this country. If you are white, and especially if you're a male, you are nothing. You're zero. Let me point you out something else that I've been doing on my videos. I've been bringing up a subject called Opposite Earth is What. Most people don't watch it. You know why? It isn't because it's bizarre, it's out of context. It is a total shadow of what our country has become. Women control us men. Women control the world. They control everything. And it hasn't helped anything if you look at it. Women create more unrest around the world. They're forcing themselves on Muslim women who live in countries where men are the dominant figure. And then what ends up happening is most times these women that think, I'm just going to retaliate against my husband, they're either decapitated, butchered, killed, whatever they do to them. And you think, is that helping society when you are forcing people to go through these kinds of torture and brutality just because you want your point to get across to somebody else? That's not helping them. You're only torturing them. You're forcing them in a position where they end up being killed, being raped, being molested, all the rest of these things because you think your way is right. Now take that context and put it back as blacks. They think their way is right. Why? Because Obama taught them that. Obama kept saying, you're better, you're superior to whites. Farrakhan says it over and over again. Kill the whites, enslave the whites, subjugate the whites. Obama said that over and over again. And that's where we are in our culture today in America. We are being subjugated by the black mentality that they are better than us, they are better than everybody else. And it's that whole context during the Civil War of 1863 and 1862 and 1861 that forced two different cultures to clash with each other. Because one side thought blacks should never have been slaves and we're going to eradicate slavery. And then you have the Southerners who were not the ones shipping in slaves, but were using them as labor in the parts of the culture of the plantation. But it was the Northerners who were bringing them in here to the United States from Africa. And in history, that's been obliterated. People don't even realize the North was as much responsible for what happened about slavery as the South was. And that's what blacks are using all the time, only but that they use it against the Southerners. Because the Southerners were this, they were that, they were bigots, they were just slave masters, slave owners, and all the rest. And in history context, look back at it and then context that in your own perception of what we are seeing around us today. Now it's the blacks who are the slave owners. And who are the slaves? Us, whites. Now they're treating us like we're slaves because they're taking our rights away from even saying anything. Now they're telling people, you can't say that because we don't agree with that. It isn't because it's illegal, it's because they're saying it's illegal. And Obama helped that along because he brainwashed people to see only one side of an issue, the black side. It's no longer about both issues having the same opportunity of expression. It's about blacks are right, whites are wrong, end of discussion, you're racist, you're this, you're that. Not only is tolerance gone, but more importantly, it is blacks are destroying our Constitution. They have destroyed our Constitution. And I point it directly in the face of Barack Obama himself because he started it and he's still doing it to this day. And that's why I will always say over and over again in my videos, Obama is the Antichrist. He has to be the Antichrist because nobody in history has ever done the kinds of travesties he has done as president and now continues to do even outside the scope as president of the United States. He's still doing these things. And by law, he hasn't got that law. He doesn't have that authority to do these things, and he still does it. And that, to me, is scary, scary, because it means he has power, he has manipulation, he has everything he needs as Antichrist to not only control America, but also the entire world, because that's his goal. Take over the United Nations, make himself absolute global leader, destroy everybody and anybody who says something about him, and that's what he's doing right now. He's silencing people who say things about Obama. That's why Roseanne Barr was attacked, because she brought up a comical statement about monkeys and apes, and Obama is saying, no, we can't tolerate that anymore. Get her off the air. Kill her. And one thing to me that made no sense is, why don't they ever bring up the fact that Roseanne Barr and what she says comes from a writer? Somebody is writing this stuff for the show. Instead of them blaming the writers for writing it, unless she ad-libbed it, I don't think she did, why didn't they just fire all the writers and say, you're the racists, instead of firing Roseanne and canceling the entire show? Instead, the cast was pointing fingers in her face saying, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're this, you're that. It's like, she should have said, wait a minute, I'm reading from the script. Somebody else wrote this down. I didn't write this. But they don't bring that up either. Because you see, they're trying to bring out certain people that they want to retaliate against. And everybody else, it doesn't matter. But if you're somebody high up in public view, you're going to be attacked. And that's why they did Roseanne Barr. Because she is a high-ranking media characterization actress. And that's why they attacked her.
Miranda Neix.
قديش عمرك؟
يا حبيبي الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
شفت وقت نعب بالإسعاف؟ ساعدك؟ طب أنا شفتك بالصورة بالإسعاف. شفتها هاي الصورة أنت؟ كانت كتير عليك غبرة. ليه؟
يعني لو وصلت الضربة رجع الواحد غبرة.
هي بس يصير في ضربة هيك بصير الواحد عليه غبرة؟
ما بالله تجي برا البيت ريحته غبرة.
شو فكرت؟
ما فكر بشي.
ما حبيت يعني ولا زعلت ولا شو؟
لا ما زعلت.
بس عرفت انه هذا انت؟
ليه؟